Is it October 10th? Call this meeting to order. CFM County Planning Board Workshop. October 10th, 2023. I'd like to welcome everyone. We're going to begin this meeting with a word of prayer and then a pledge of allegiance. Everyone will stand. Much grace, Son, and Father, we just praise you for this time. We can come out and discuss these issues of Effingham County. We just ask you would look on each and every one of us and just give us the right ideas. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So is there any changes to this agenda? No changes?
Changes to the agenda, Chelsea? Not the workshop, right?
Not the workshop.
All right. I called for a motion to approve this agenda for the workshop.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion for approval. Second, Mr. Higgins, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried by all. Minutes from our last workshop. Corrections or additions. I call for a motion to approve these.
Motion to approve. I'll second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved by all. All right, is that it? Item number 1, consideration of an amendment to the Code of Ordinances Appendix C, zoning ordinance Article 9, amendments to map or text 9.3, procedure for calling a public hearing.
Yes, sir. So
Chelsea.
absolutely. So this is in order to conform to Georgia case law. This is more so that when conducting these meetings and there is there are conditions for amendment to map or text. This gives us gives you guys and the Board of Commissioners the ability to do that, to apply conditions. Right now, our ordinance is not so clear. And so we want to clarify that. So that is what this ordinance amendment would do.
It legally reinforces what
Yes.
So, I mean, when I read this, I'm assuming it is so that we make a recommendation, they want to add or take something away. It doesn't have to then be turned around and come back. Or it's basically they do it and it's done. So,
Right. And so if there are ever legal procedures that, they come back and say, oh, you weren't allowed to, put that condition on it,
okay.
we can say, yes, in our ordinance, it says we can. So,
And that's what's highlighted in the red, Chelsea.
yes, sir. So that is actually the case law that allows us to do that.
Got it.
The one thing that I did was look, I mean, it's procedure for calling a public hearing. I mean, and why is it worded? So,
I've not understood that myself.
because when I first read it, I was like, here we go for calling a special call meeting or something like that. And then,
That's what it's gonna be about too.
yeah,
So I think it's probably designed for so when we call for public hearing, we have to advertise.
mhm,
But we advertise what the rezoning is, not the conditions that are potentially put on that rezoning.
Mhm.
And so I think that because you can't advertise those conditions, this is saying you can add conditions in a quasi judicial and or legal manner
gotcha,
Right.
without having to advertise.
gotcha.
That'd be my guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but it's sitting, I mean, this is anything that requires a public hearing then, that's what we're saying, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't actually take action on a public hearing anyway. they take action on those zoning,
Take action afterwards.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where you put the conditions.
Yeah.
I guess we don't break ours out until like public hearing, we close the public hearing and we go into like, some places will do that, right?
Public hearing.
Sometimes.
Well, but I'm saying it's not like it's. Yeah, I guess it is that way. Sometimes some places will go all the way through all the public hearing items and never close the public hearing, like you don't take any action.
Oh,
And then it comes back through and then you make the vote. Right.
mm.
Yeah, but I like the when David does close the public hearing. That way, there's no more input from the community or from the applicants.
Yeah.
Not wished for any more input from the community. Sometimes they still
Yeah.
have something they have to say. It's life or death.
So we'll leave that reference to the actual case law in the ordinance.
It's always good to do that.
Okay.
Now, if Lee wants to take it out later, that's fine, but we want to see that because it's a quick reference for the center to look up.
I think it's a great thing to have in there to
Yeah.
clarify because we often need to put conditions on things. If there's not, if there's a question about that. Sorry, I thought.
I mean, obviously it's fine. I always assumed that this was merely a recommendation and the commissioners could add or strike or do anything anyway. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anything further? Call for a motion.
Make a motion to accept the amendment, to change
just-
the ordinance.
This is just workshop, right?
Oh,
We'll
yeah,
do
that's
that.
right. Yeah, that's true.
Save that
Yeah.
for-
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it is just a workshop. Okay.
Like your-
That would be awesome. All right, number 2,
All right.
consideration of an amendment to the Code of Ordinances Appendix C, zoning ordinance, Article 3, general provisions, 3.9 deed restrictions.
Yes, sir. So lately, this is something we've seen. We're seeing deeds that are deeds, and we're also seeing parcels that are coming in that are split by deed only and not with the plat. So this amendment would make it to where a plat has to be signed by our zoning administrator, so that the parcel can be split or subdivided. Right now, deeds can subdivide property without a plat. So this would correct that. So,
And so they become non-conforming uses that we're unaware of. And they become subdivisions that we're not aware of.
Yep.
And we've talked with this extensively with the Neil at appraisal and tax office. And they want to work with us everywhere we can, and they're fine with this happening. This is the state statute again that it exists across the state. Other counties have done it. We're just trying to do it.
So I guess they go to a attorney and they get, an attorney does it and gives them a deed.
right, they give them a deed, and then the deed is recorded, and then the parcel split, and we know nothing. The plat doesn't come through our office, and next thing we know, we have non-conforming.
Yeah. 3 years later,
Yep.
come up and we're like, what?
So how do they get a new plat? A survey?
Right, so they would then go to a surveyor and have the plat drawn and
Find, okay.
come through our office for the recording.
But as long as it meets requirements, it's just a staff level thing. You're not-
Right,
yeah.
yep, it's just staff.
So you're gonna have the expense of a surveyor, but I mean. but
Which, I
if you're
mean-
buying property.
Yeah, I mean, if you're splitting property, it should be surveyed
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean, there are often times that big parcels aren't resurveyed,
Yeah.
like big parcels aren't resurveyed, and they'll just reference deeds to purchase it, but if it's changing the parcel boundary. Yeah. and
Yeah,
it's-
they go-
Yeah,
They go hand in hand.
yeah. Yeah, well, in order to be able to recreate the boundary in the future, there should be a pin put in the ground when the survey is created. So, yeah, I guess back to the same back to the same kind of point that Dave asked earlier, though, is that the appropriate heading is deed restrictions, or should it just be generally like deed related somethings? Because I mean,
So
that,
it's listed twice in our ordinance, once under that taxation under chapter 70, and then it's listed under 3.9 deed restriction.
Deed restrictions.
So those are the two places currently listed. So let us get
Yeah.
through the entire rewrite of the zoning ordinance. Then we're gonna start with 1 through 75 of. the-
Yeah. so currently there is language that allows it, or there's just silent.
It does not say it's not allowed.
Okay.
Doesn't specifically.
Yeah.
Right, there's nothing specific.
We're.
So-
Now you want to specifically say you gotta have a
Right.
plat.
Flat, right, yes, sir.
Mhm.
Okay. That's an easy one.
All right, any further discussion? All right. Very well. 3.
Wait, I
Oh,
guess.
go ahead.
So, can you legally require them to record it?
Because the state statute says we can.
You can. But it's not saying, that's why combination recombine, I guess I'm asking, should we then require them to record it? Yeah, because y'all don't record it, right? Y'all just approve it at staff level. It's up to the owner to then decide to record it or not record it.
Right.
But then if it's not recorded at the courthouse, there's no record other than that surveyor and y'all's files.
So.
Right.
that's it.
And the attorney.
Isn't
And
that,
the
isn't that
attorney, right.
always recorded at closing? The closing attorney takes
The
the,
attorneys should.
The deed-
record it.
Right, but there won't be a recorded plat. Like in our our surveyors, we go research deeds and then see if there's a reference plat, but it would reference a plat that didn't exist. It wouldn't be recorded anywhere. So they would have no way of finding that unless they,
Yeah.
unless they attach it to the deed, which a lot of times they don't. They
Alright,
just
so
reference.
let's add the sentence, the plat is then required to be recorded.
Yeah, I think that'd be especially important for like recommendations and things like that.
Yeah.
We can call it all day long, we don't record them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Thank you.
That will stop the problem that the tax assessor is telling us about,
That's what I was
well, with
wondering,
the bank thing.
yeah. And then you just, because the banks don't care. They don't care about the zoning ordinance or the zoning map, that's the problem,
Yeah,
and the judge doesn't either.
So it's, I mean, how about a plat shall be required and recorded for all combination, recombination and or subdivision of property.
yeah. However, the verbiage
what should
goes.
it say, recorded at Superior Court? That's where the plats are recorded.
Is it Superior Court?
I
don't know.
Superior Court.
Recorded at the courthouse is all I know.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would include that.
Whatever the,
Specifically, we're gonna get specific.
yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's Superior Court of Effingham County.
Yeah.
I mean. 123 Dirt Road.
Okay, good, that's great.
Any further discussion on that? Item 3, consideration of an amendment to the Code of Ordinances, Part 2, Official Code, Chapter 10, Animals.
Okay. So, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll-
Good.
I know, thank you. So, there has been some information that has been given out to some, folks who have been repeated that R1 can have 0 to 4 chickens. Hens. So that's been going on for some time. The ordinance does not reflect that. We are rewriting the entirety of chapter 10, but for now, we just need to change section 10-112. Keep going. Keep going.
And she's on 10.2.
Yeah, 10-112. Number 1, A, number 4.
I went too far.
Yeah, I think you went too far.
So it's good.
Went
I went
far.
too far.
So go to where it talks about the hens there and what.
10.1 is the first one.
10.1
10.1.
definitions.
Where does it talk about the numbers there? Right?
I thought there used to be charts.
So what?
Chart,
It goes to 10.2,
swine.
Yeah, the animal chart, right.
right? So I need
Number 2, right, excuse me.
10.11. I don't have one.
Yeah. Excuse me. Keep going. Close.
I think it's right there.
Page 54, yep.
Yeah, 10-112, keeping a fowl, also known as the chicken ordinance.
Yeah, so they're under 2A. Chickens only in an R1, and then if you keep going, it shows a chart.
Chickens 4 or less in R1.
That's it. That's right there.
Chickens, turkeys, guineas, geese, ducks,
Yeah,
pigeons.
Chickens in R1.
So right above that.
So that's what we're changing, nothing else, just that right there.
So you're taking it out?
No, we're adding it in because it currently people are doing it.
So are
So this
people
is a
complaining about it?
restriction?
Is that why y'all know that people are doing it?
Yeah,
So are we
You would be
sure
amazed
it's a
how
good
often
idea?
So
Chickens.
it's assumed that
come
if
up.
you're in R1, you
I
can
know,
have 4
Well,
chickens.
Because the thing is currently the complaints we get now are based on people having 200 chickens in their backyard or having roosters or something that if they had rules and had to follow them, we could say no, but this is what you can do.
So
And
wait,
this will
a
also
rooster-
involve a chicken permit. Are we still doing that?
yep.
Which will be at a staff level, so you won't have to hear
Yeah,
chicken
we'll
permits.
start doing chicken permit.
Are y'all gonna be at Tractor Supply before they sell chickens?
It's not a bad idea. I could sit by the baby chicks.
Or put a handout out there?
Chickens in R1.
The
You can't.
That's what we're adding.
You can
Ready?
have
Yeah,
4.
right now, so right now, our ordinance does not allow chickens in R1. We're adding that you can have up to 4 chickens in R1. Now that's just hens. You cannot have roosters.
It's now called the backyard hen permit.
Excuse my naivety, but isn't a rooster a chicken?
A rooster is not allowed, only a hen.
Only hens.
But
will
I
be
guess
allowed.
to his point, it should say hens.
Yeah, it says
Say
chickens.
Well, okay, it does up in the upper part, but yeah, it should.
Yes.
Or just say chickens.
But then somebody would
Hens
say, well,
only.
rooster's a chicken, so I got a rooster here now.
Roosters are terrible.
And I got 4 roosters.
Hens only.
You have 4 roosters though?
No, but somebody
wonder why
might
they're
say
not
if it
getting eggs.
doesn't, if it says. I'm not a country person, so I don't know. A chicken is a chicken and is a rooster a chicken?
Yes.
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 Rooster is a chicken.
Okay,
Yeah, you pointed out a good thing. It should say, if we're trying to limit it to only hens, it should say hens.
It should say hens only.
Chickens, the whole.
the whole thing.
Did we want to keep guineas, Paul? In,
Guineas make.
no, no, they're not.
They're not.
They're underneath.
I like
I
guinea
thought we had
pigs.
more restrictions on those.
Make a bunch of noise.
No, they make a hell of a lot of
Yeah,
noise. My
yeah.
brother had him in his farm in Oregon.
Trying to correct that.
2 or more in
The
AR1
important
or
thing is
AR2.
getting the chickens to the people.
Yeah.
When I was
So-
home in New York, there was a lot of
Hens
guys
anyway.
called them Italians.
How big is an R1 lot?
Half acre
Half acre.
is the minimum.
You still have to meet the
You gotta be 150 feet.
150 feet.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Are we writing an ordinance that most R1 lots still aren't gonna be able to abide by?
Well, a half acre lot won't.
150
No,
feet,
they-
you'd be
they can
overlapping.
have 2, but it's gonna be closer to their house than it is.
Well, isn't a half acre?
So the
100
coop
pounds?
has to be 150 feet from neighboring homes. It can be, it doesn't have to be from their dwelling, but from neighboring dwellings.
Well, I know.
Is
but I
this
mean,
to the property line or
Lot
to
line is
the?
only 100 feet
Yeah.
wide. isn't it?
That distance is from neighboring dwellings.
So there can't be free range on your half acre lot, because it would go over to the property line. which
The
is only
coop,
25
that
feet away from
hundred
the
and
next
fifty
house.
feet distance
assume-
is the
I
coop.
just didn't make it to the property line.
Well, it says
Not
they
their
shall be kept in it shall be kept in following minimum distance.
Yeah, that,
Doesn't say the coop. Unless there's a coop somewhere else.
Wouldn't it be easier just to say no chickens?
it's unenforceable.
The people want chickens.
Yeah, they want chicken. Pandemic is created about chicken.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I
Victory
just find
Garden
it fascinating talking
came
about
up
this today.
because of the need.
This is stupid.
Yeah, there's
I
a
need to
need.
know my buffers, not chickens.
Can you put your chickens in a buffer?
I mean,
I would hate to allow it, but then have a setback standard that really doesn't allow it. Like, how wide is an R1 lot? I can't remember. Like minimum, because most of them are gonna be minimum.
20,000 square feet,
yeah,
and it's
It's gonna be 100 by 220.
but that could be a limiting factor. If you about can't do it on a half acre lot.
How big is an acre lot? A 200 by 200 lot? Is that like
Almost, that's
40,000?
40,000 square feet, so it's
Close.
3,000 square feet.
Yeah, Tim.
So 100 by 100 is a half acre lot?
It's a quarter acre lot.
It's a quarter acre lot.
3,000 square
Ah.
feet. Yeah, I mean, half acre is 100 foot wide by 213 feet deep or something like that, so.
Oh, 100 by 200.
mm.
Okay.
So I guess technically, yeah, you could, well, I'd still be afraid the sides yards, you probably wouldn't end up being able to make it, but. I don't know what, I just, again, if it's got a standard. It seems like, was there precedent or? 150 feet came from just the sound feels good,
Everybody else's,
okay,
all the other county ordinances that we looked at.
yeah. Right, because if it's a typical neighborhood that's 100 feet wide, right, or 100 foot lots that were designed to R1.
Right.
I mean, your house is minimum side yard is what? 15, right?
Yeah.
Not saying you gotta be right there, so, I don't know, you just overlapping circles would never allow it.
It'd be real hard to be 150 feet away from somebody in a 100 wide lot.
So it's not the chicken, it's the house. So.
What came first, the chicken or the house?
You can go on.
I just hate to put something in the ordinance that really then makes it almost impossible for,
I don't want to do that because that's like.
Jason, it's an
Yeah.
R1 subdivision.
You can go on.
Make it 100.
Did we
I
decide
don't see, I mean,
Do
yeah.
legal point.
If you're gonna allow them 100 feet's pretty good
Uh,
distance
do we
between
teal?
somebody's house.
Still drive.
Because the coop does smell, I can tell you for a fact.
Chicken stink.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that is a problem too.
I don't know.
Well, that's why we try to keep the distance.
Yeah.
But if the wind blows right, it doesn't matter how far away.
All right, so this is just an example of an R1 subdivision, so you can get an idea for what the 150 feet is. And okay, so
That's a good example. That guy right there has a chicken coop right there.
so it would be possible.
Okay,
Yeah, but not probable.
Yeah, you would have to,
So do 100.
But then he's got.
so that works because they don't have a house behind them.
But then, but yeah, but there could be a
They had
house
a house
behind it.
behind them.
Yeah,
that would then be a problem.
I don't know.
Yeah, take that lot.
When you
figure
commit
it
to
out.
living a subdivision, I think you
See, these
Yeah,
folks
see
are
that,
only
that one would be.
135,
not have
140 feet.
agricultural animals.
Well,
More than
I mean, we
likely, the
could-
homeowner's gonna put the
if
chicken
I mean,
coop
if 100 feet.
far
seems
away from its
reasonable,
dwelling because of the odor of the chicken coop. They wouldn't want it at their back sliding glass door.
Should I let my neighbor suffer, not me?
Yeah.
Sure.
So they'll move it down to the corner of their property, which will now even shorten the distance between the coop and the chicken and the house, adjoining house.
Whatever, I'm fine with 150 feet, that's fine, if it doesn't work, but I don't like. I want them to make sure that there is at least some instances, it's on them, I guess, to figure out whether or not it'll fit or work or not.
Well, the half acre is the minimum lot size. So I mean, you say basically you got to have an acre to make it work.
Yeah.
Or larger.
Oh, and most of these, if they've got covenants and restrictions, they're probably restricted in the first place.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But if it's not, it's probably gonna be covered pretty quickly. For like the
200 foot to that.
first meeting.
Right. I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, I don't care.
I don't-
So where we at? Well,
Leave it at 150. That's
100 feet and 4 chickens.
4 hands.
Now, 4 chickens, I can tell you, it doesn't create that much of a mess. And if you have good chickens, you'll get 4 eggs a day.
Oh, yeah.
4 eggs a day is a lot.
Yeah, it's 28 eggs a week.
hope you like eggs.
They don't work on the weekend. It's only 20.
They don't lay you around.
They are the highest source of protein. versus calories.
Yeah, the only reason I brought it up is I just wanted to make sure that there was going to be some viable options in there. So it was like the shows that there would be. I'm good with 150 feet if everybody else is.
Okay, excellent.
What did you say, Ryan? 150?
Yeah, just leave it as, I mean, if there's precedent from other ordinances that it gives a little bit of additional controls on a questionable thing, do we even want to allow in the first place? I guess that's a good thing.
Right. You got to have enough land to have chickens. We good?
Thank you.
Or consideration of an amendment to the Code of Ordinances, Part 2, Official Code, Chapter 70, Taxation, Article 1 in general.
So again, this is the deed restrictions, just the second place in the ordinance that you find this, and it is the having the plat signed by the zoning administrator instead of just a deed. So to split a parcel.
Does it need to say recorded?
It does.
Yeah, we'll put recorded flag in front of it, like, here, this is what she did for.
Right, so this is the same, we're just addressing the same issue.
Right,
different
yes, sir.
continents.
So it's in 2 different spots.
Okay.
This is that second spot.
You got another? Here's the change.
But you put recorded flag.
Yeah, a recorded plat should be required for, yep.
Okay.
Good.
What's some quick?
Consideration of an amendment to the Code of Ordinances, Part 2, Official Code, Chapter 13, Environment, Article 10, Farmland Preservation.
All right. So first I want to kind of give a shout out to Sam Easton, our planner one. This was her baby. So unfortunately she couldn't be here to present this to you. She really wanted to. So she gave me some summary points, and Steve will definitely chime in. So the purpose of this ordinance is to protect and preserve farmland in high density areas of the county. So think places like Highway 80, Highway 17. The process is completely voluntary, and it is a state funded program that will allow the county to buy the development rights of the property. This process will take away the ability to develop anything above the ground unless specifically used for agricultural purposes. So it's almost like, in essence, it's an easement in front of the property that the state would contribute, I believe it was 50%. The county would contribute 25%. And development would not be allowed to happen in the area. And it would preserve the agricultural purposes of that land. The requirements for agricultural preservation It has to be 10 acres or more. It must have 100 feet of road frontage. It must be considered threatened land, meaning, again, think of those high areas, along Highway 80, or, I mean, we could even think of Hodgeville Road at this point. Must profit at least $500 in the last 6 months of agricultural use. So this is a way to preserve our agricultural component in our county. So the property owner can petition to terminate this agreement. If the property owner can provide that it's no longer feasible to restrict these development rights by providing the current use of this property directly goes against the purpose of the ordinance. The Farmland Preservation District overlay could go in effect once the state and county have approved the application. So this would be an overlay district.
But on a parcel by parcel basis, not
Right,
like,
exactly. So it would be something that, the applicant could come and say, this is, here's my parcel. I would like to enter into this agreement with the state and the county. I want to preserve this agricultural use of my property. I don't want it developed. And, it would be an option that the state and the county would have.
Interesting.
I feel like I'm missing, Steve, if you want to chime in, I feel like I'm kind of missing some of
Would it be exempt from eminent domain if the county or the state came in and said, we're building a super highway, we need your property?
Huh. Don't know the answer to that question.
I don't know the answer to that. But it does clearly say that development cannot happen. But that being said, eminent
Yeah,
domain is.
I think
is-
eminent domain probably trumps any.
Right,
so can I ask you,
absolutely.
what, keep going and then I'll ask if you,
Is
this
that
is, well, I
okay?
guess my first question is it postponed? Like, we're not considering it tonight?
No, we're gonna talk about it. I'm not sure.
It's more of a workshop item.
Right.
It's on the agenda. But I think when
Okay.
it gets done, you're probably gonna say, we need to talk about it some more.
Yeah, I think this is a wonderful idea. Transfer of development rights can work very well. But I personally would like to read it and dig into it a lot more and understand it a lot more. But I guess, again, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
This is solely for the county to be able to purchase the development rights, not for a private. And I'm not asking this because I think it's a bad idea, because I think it could be a good idea. To be able to create incentives for density elsewhere where we want dense growth, that they could purchase development rights from someone.
So it's not a bank per se.
Mhm.
However, it could transition to that at some point in time, depending on what other ordinances.
Yeah. Yeah, I worked in a community in Florida that they had what they called their ag preserve. And they knew that it wasn't necessarily the major corridor. It was that they wanted the ag preserve to say the ag preserve, but they knew the pressure from the private development community was going to obviously push out there. But that's what they did, as opposed to trying to keep the government from having to pay for preserving it. They gave an incentive to give those development rights, but so you had the right to 9 units per acre for multifamily. It would be that, okay, I'm going to go purchase his, he's got the rights to a 5 acre lot on 200 acres. So that's 40 lots. I'm going to go purchase those 40 lot development rights.
That's a successful way of doing it. as
Right,
well.
absolutely.
We've also talked about tweaking it to where maybe, the corridor is preserved, but in the interior, doing more of the density than what would be required on the outside.
Yeah.
But this is a new program that started in the state, that came out of the legislature this year.
Okay.
And so we're trying to, be one of the first to get involved in it. And, again, it's 50% state money, 25%, county money. And then the other 25% is what the homeowner gets in tax incentive back.
And that money is to pay the assessed value of that parcel of
And
land?
they have to do the appraisal.
So this ordinance was as part of the legislation that came out, did
Right.
they have a draft ordinance? that-
That model,
Yeah.
we tweaked it.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely don't want to, I think it's a wonderful thing that we're including and giving that incentive. I just, you know, I would like to just understand it a bit more. I guess I didn't realize it was an option out there. So.
And this is a program that would be run and enforced by development services versus tax.
So it can be, but it's preferred to be run by a 501c3,
Mhm.
which would be one that already exists or one that would have to be.
By the county?
Possibly. There are some that already exist in the state.
So it can be developed for agricultural,
It could continue to be agriculture.
yeah, but it can't, somebody can't come along and say, well, put a cell tower there.
No, yep, it has to be agricultural.
Conservation easement.
But, you know, and for the character of the county, you know, you're known for your rural agricultural setting that, you know, if we don't look at it now, you won't see it in the future.
The biggest one that comes to my mind when I thought about this is the Kesslers down on Highway 30. I mean, that is being developed, you know, they're down where Midland hits 30. They're still farming. But you know, the urban sprawl is really closing in on them.
Well, and I think that's, you know, this ordinance specifically targets that threatened land, if you will, so.
I think they would be a prime candidate. You know, I don't know how much,
Is the dollar figures going to be comparable enough that they'll consider it?
I don't know how much state and county money you have. I mean, obviously,
Well, that's interesting.
you could get a big incentive for developers to do it. I would rather see them not, because I'd rather conserve the green space and
But- and I
not
may have missed
increase
it.
our overall density.
Well, I may have said the way I was saying, what you do, what that would be is not on that piece of property.
No, I
it's
get it, I
preserving
get it, but I
It's-
would rather take doors, you know, just lessen the number of doors we have in an area, just because it's overburdened at present, you know, so by doing it with the taxpayer money, it's just taken off the books. I just don't know how much taxpayer money's out there to get it done, so, I mean, you incentivize developers by you can get it, you can probably get it bought.
But the basis of it is intended to be a way for local governments or local county governments to be able to work with the state to control and protect those properties while allowing a farmer to be able to afford to stay on this land.
So how binding is it to the homeowner when he says, I'm the Kesslers, I'm tired of this, I have no heirs, we're gonna sell that property? Oh, you can't sell that portion because it's now bound by this agreement.
There is a process they have to go through. I'm not gonna say it's rigorous, but it's.
That was a
probably
termination.
harder to do that than this good.
What if they sold the property? Would it constantly be there or does it
The easement
expire?
stays with
So
it.
the easement, yes, sir, the easement stays with them. Mhm. And if they decide there is a termination, so it is rigorous, but if they decide they want to terminate, they do have that option.
Yeah, they can sell it, but they can't.
They can sell it, but they can't terminate it.
Yeah,
So it would go with the
But
property.
it's an
You can
easement.
sell it all day long. It's
Stick
just,
to
they're
the
still
property.
restricted, just like you are. Whoever you sell it to is going to have the same restrictions. And I'm assuming the same tax benefits.
I mean, there is a program with the federal government, conservation easements.
Yeah.
A lot of people are doing them. You know, you buy a piece of property and you sign it up. You have to get it appraised. Of course, they want the appraisal to be as high as possible. So most of them get looked at, especially by the IRS. But it is conserved forever. I mean, it's an extensive process. But it's for tax credits. Like
Right, they'll sell the tax.
they said,
They'll sell.
and
the
they'll
tax
either,
credits to somebody
either
who
they
needs
need them themselves or they sell the tax credits.
It's definitely got a lot more challenging to go through the process, but we had, I mean, those
Yeah, I don't
points when the
understand.
economy that are supposed to do with the property.
I've never experienced that, so that's the
Um,
new wrinkle. to me.
So
It's
that
interesting.
complete draft was in our packet.
Like, I said, it goes on across the nation, it's just new though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's new to me.
Well, this is a different government entity doing it. The ones I'm speaking of is from the federal government.
Right.
Conservation, wildlife.
So, I mean, there's especially one landowner that's been buying a lot of property in the north end of the county and doing it. But this is new, and I guess this just moves it to the state level, state and local level.
So I'm sure I'll see it when I read it in further in depth. What is the basis for their development rights established off of the existing zoning, or what my friends would be coming to say, I want to rezone your property to this viable zoning that the adjacent property, because that's going to dramatically affect the value of those development rights.
So if it's a farm now, then that's what. It's based on.
Okay. That's going to be
It'll be hard to.
very minimal compared to what that developer is going to be. So definitely be some, okay. So this is just for somebody that wants to take that option off the table in the future.
That's right.
Okay. Not somebody that's weighing both options. Okay.
You're right. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you don't drive down, Interstate 4 anymore and see orange trees all across Central Florida.
Mhm.
It's bottom line.
Good. I'm excited
That's
that that's an
gonna make
option.
it a much harder sale if they can't get significant credits for it.
That's the theory of how it works in most, like you're not basing it off the agricultural development rights. It's based off of maybe not fully entitled property, but so then it's like, okay, it was a farm, but if I got it rezoned to this, I'd be able to do 20 lots off of it. Now the development right number is 20 lots, not a farm. So
Yeah, I mean, so farmland, no matter where you are, is $1,000 an acre. That's what farmland's worth, and land on Highway 30 is probably 25 or $30,000 an acre.
And
You know.
just have to see how it works.
mhm.
And I think that one of the things that we're going to work on is some examples of what would happen if they fix some properties and. Because I'm sure the appraisal part of the county can come up. And keep it on. But we want you to read it, look at it,
Okay.
add to it, back from it.
Somebody, this is the only way you're gonna conserve this land. I mean, people can't continue, is there life changes, the older generation may want to hang on to it, but then the younger generation's like, it is just, the walls are closing in. It's time to go.
No, I think it's a wonderful idea. We
Yeah.
just need to make sure it's got enough incentive.
It's
Work.
gonna have to have incentive to work. Otherwise, there's no incentive to do.
Any other counties surrounding us enacted this idea in their covenants?
If you'll wait just a minute, I'll see if I get an answer to that. Okay?
But this was just this past legislative session. They adopted it.
Oh.
So, okay.
Okay, it's too soon.
So yeah, it's pretty quick. Some people may have already been ready for it by the time it was adopted.
Seemed like the adjoining county of Screven is more agricultural than Effingham, but I may be wrong.
Well, it is, but nobody wants their land. I mean,
Not yet.
not,
I mean,
developers
this thing-
don't, developers aren't,
Too far away
yeah,
from
I mean,
urban
you know,
areas.
yeah. I mean, their life's been changed, but the Kesslers, and I keep going back to them just because they're the ones that pop into my head the most, where they used to get out on Highway 30 and drive their tractor down the road. Now it's
Mhm.
not so easy, and they probably get a lot of bad looks and bad sign language when they do. So, you can only take so much before you're like, I'm gonna sell out down here and I'm gonna go to Scriven County and buy a farm and I'll go farm up there.
Not to our knowledge, somebody is adopted. all could be fine.
So while we're talking conservation, I know it's not on the list, but well, I guess we need to get it.
No,
on the
keep
list.
going.
I think we need to consider conservation subdivisions. That's something that a lot of communities are starting to adopt that can be by right.
What is that?
All right, so say I've got a piece of property that's, and usually it's allowed in multiple different zoning districts. The density will be different, right? And I think this is going to be an option that as our county expands water and sewer is something we could consider, right? So, and it could be very much that you want to protect the corridor's aesthetic. What you would do is either, and again, it depends on, are you actually zoning into it or are you allowing it as a by right? But as a by right, it could be that, I'm already AR, whatever, AR2 or R1. But now that, say I was R1 zoned, but now because of water and sewers come, R1 zoning, the lot widths are really probably wider than what is financially viable to build for the cost of putting sewer down the road. 100 foot of sewer for every lot is very expensive. So what a conservation subdivision ordinance typically would do is say, okay, you've got the basis of an R1. We're going to let you, as opposed to developing all 100 acres in R1 at 100 feet wide lots, we're going to let you develop at 60 foot wide lots. That makes their development costs significantly less, makes the county's future maintenance costs if they're taking the roads over less because they got less infrastructure to maintain. And then the remaining, I reduced it by 40%. So the remaining 40% stays in a preserved conservation area, right? So 40% of that site gets conserved. And the beauty of it and the places that I'm thinking of it is a by right allowance. So you got to go through a lot of working with staff. But you, as a development standpoint, you don't have to go through a zoning process because you're not really changing the yield on the piece of property.
So Ryan, what is that 40%? Is it green space?
Yeah, it would be required to be deed restricted, sometimes dedicated to some sort of, it depends. I mean, there's not a whole lot of places that are doing it, but to me, it's a very good way to encourage growth where you already got infrastructure established, but maybe not allow everything to just be the same. And especially if you got areas where there's some concern about protecting corridors or the aesthetics of certain spots, but because you've got, the county's made an investment in infrastructure. I mean, we need to be developing homes where we put water and sewer in, right? I mean, there's a big investment that we've made. So I don't know, just something to throw out that maybe we could consider looking at some point in the future. Y'all got me inspired by the development rights transfer. Dave, you don't look happy.
I mean, can we get more dense than we already are?
Absolutely. I mean, we can. I mean, that's
We're 60-foot lots now, right? 50 foot, 50 foot.
well, not always. Right.
In R1, we are.
No, R1 to 100 foot wide lots, aren't they? It's the R6, our most,
I mean,
or R5.
R5, yeah.
Right.
R5.
But again, this would allow us to have an R5 development cost, right? To make that number work. But as opposed to all 100 acres of it being, or whatever, all the usable acres being a lot on every one of those being an R5, 6,000 square foot lot. This would allow them to do that. And that would allow it would allow, again, the cost of that infrastructure, the cost of that road. I mean, that's where it
Oh, yeah, I agree.
comes from.
So I guess I'm just asking when we're at, I think it is 50 feet. I think R5
50 or
went
55, yeah, something like that.
55.
Yeah.
How do you increase your density to offset that?
Oh, no, if you're zoned R5, I don't think this is an option.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think that's a pretty dense one already. This would be more of an R1. Again, all right, so say it's an area that was whatever, but it's got sewer beside it, right? Well, I don't, I think we want to preserve this pasture area. It's historic. We want to do this. So I want to rezone to R1, but I don't want to build 100-foot wide lots. I want to build 60-foot wide lots. Okay, well, we have a mechanism for you for that, but you got to preserve 40% of your upland. And, and we want you to preserve this 40% of your upland. I mean, you could get some controls in there, but that's just where I was, because that is the big challenge when once sewer's a 100-foot wide lot, building the road, building the water, building the sewer. It's when you want to talk about, like, we're all talking about a housing affordability crisis.
Yeah.
Every foot of sidewalk, every foot of curb, every foot of gutter, every foot of it's adding cost to the lot. And that would be a way that we could potentially maybe
You know, I
create some
mean,
options for it.
Don't get me wrong, I'm all in favor of what you're saying. I'm just trying to see how you encourage developers to do so. Excuse-
Well, I
How
think-
you force,
Well,
how you force a developer to do it?
Only in R1,
Mhm.
can you increase? I'll say the density for lack of a better.
Yeah.
term, increase, the density enough to lower the cost of it.
Yeah, or there may be some areas that we say absolutely R5 is not appropriate,
Yeah.
right? So that's not an option,
Well, that's all we're seeing. That's all we get.
but because of the point I'm saying, right? Because I mean, that are not all because of that point, but that is a big driving factor behind it. That is the zoning, that's the one zoning that makes it viable from a development standpoint, cost for the lot, for the cost per lot, just for the infrastructure. Doing R1, they might as well do septic.
Yeah, and generationally, people don't want to cut around.
Agreed. I just don't know why they're gonna go R1 versus R5.
Well, again, I think it would be that the county decides R5 is not appropriate here, but we do want you to be able to develop. R1 is, and we've got a cluster subdivision, cluster subdivision, conservation subdivision, kind of similar thing. I don't know.
So you're-
Again, just
you're-
throwing it out there for
To do that, we're gonna have to do it with some sort of zoning map. When the map comes,
Well, you could either save certain areas that you're willing for it to happen, or you just say that, R1 and maybe there's another version, another zoning district that we're comfortable with it happening.
or can we
Yeah.
get it R5?
I'm not saying that, but
But
I'm playing
R5
devil's advocate.
R5 does require sewage
It
because
does.
you can't put septic on
That's right.
those lots.
correct, no doubt.
Are we almost at capacity for sewage now? I mean, how many more homes can this place handle?
Well, it might be now, but I mean, you can always upgrade and increase a treatment plant. And
I mean, all of a sudden, it seems like you reach a point of
in my opinion, this county's nowhere close to that.
saturation.
But-
You don't have enough.
Your county what?
But the county's nowhere close to saturated. Yeah, and
I
that's
mean,
my,
it's got to have some, you just got to keep growing with it.
that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to grow the drain, I mean, the sewer treatment plant.
Yeah, but I mean, that's,
Where
That-
is
that
the
is a-
sewer treatment plant?
Beside Progress Power on
Yeah.
McCall Road.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I guess it's well.
Yeah, it's back in there.
I-
The gas line.
I just think a lot of the things that the general public gets fired, and that's why I sent that email about the buffers, right? I think a lot of what the general public gets fired up about is what you can see from the public roads, right?
Absolutely.
So if we required that, yeah, as a conservation easement, or excuse me, cluster subdivision or conservation subdivision, you're gonna have a minimum 200-foot buffer to the road. You never see it, right? Unless it's in a farm, right? That's what we are gonna have some challenges with that because you don't have existing trees growing in some of it. But that's the kind of thing, like, you have to have trails. I mean, there's the sky's the limit. You could require a bunch of things, Dave, to your point. It wouldn't be viable if R5 is approved everywhere. But I think we're seeing some spots where all of us have heartburn over putting R5, but we do need to let it be able to, again, if it's got sewer beside it, we need to be encouraging something that makes sense financially for somebody to develop with sewer. So, in my opinion.
I mean, I agree 100%. I mean,
Because the taxes from those developments pay for the sewage infrastructure.
Yeah, the investment's already there.
Yeah.
And it's extremely expensive to get, to your point, we've got limited capacity at the plant, but we've also got very limited places where there is a sewer line to tap into right now. The county's doing a good job of planning and expanding it, but I don't know. You just, again, it inspired me seeing that ordinance.
so
That's
yes.
right while the iron's hot.
It'll work, but you have to give your developer some cover because every landowner thinks they have a piece of property that's worth $40,000 an acre. You know. So, you know, you have to say, no, I can't do an R5 like he did down the road. Your property's not worth as much. But I can do this and I can pay you this for it. But if you get one developer doing that, when another developer saying, no, if I can get R5, then the big money, you know, so I mean, you just have to make it so it's clear cut, you know, for everybody.
I agree. I mean,
But yeah,
I know
what I'd love to
part
see
of what
more-
we still yet to come is a future land use map, and maybe that's, you know, certain character areas, cluster subdivisions are appropriate, right? Maybe that's how you control it.
Would I love to see more green space? Absolutely. Absolutely.
So. We talk about some more stuff that's coming away. So we know we had a commissioner retreat. Back at the end of August. The items that were on the agenda to be discussed there were obviously the zoning ordinance. And the rewrite where we're at on that. The highlights of that were the 3.4 buffers. On the commissioners, want that ASAP. The subdivision rewrite. They want, something that is not 0 to 3, but is not 5 or more. They want something in between. I'll call it an intermediate subdivision, you can call it what you want. But not everybody has, you know, 3 kids that they want to divide their 6 acres up. So that's one of the requests. We almost are done with subdivision, so you're going to see that soon. Go ahead.
Can you explain the intermediate?
0 to 3 lots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a major subdivision is
4 to
4
100.
or more.
Right.
They want, there's a gap there. So they want family subdivision to be 0 to 3, minor subdivision to be 4 to 10, and major subdivision to be 10 or 15. Something on that order. And in that minor subdivision, whereas the family plot, you have a 60-foot easement and whatever happens. In that new minor subdivision, you have some higher standards for access that you don't have for the family subdivision, but they're not as stringent as they are with the major subdivision. And so that's what we're working on. The rest of the majority of it's done.
So minor would still be no, you know, extension of infrastructure, right? Isn't that one of the other requirements? A major is. Right, but no water, sewer,
Then, in the zoning ordinance itself, you know, we've done 1 and we've done 8, those are both passed.
Mhm.
We talked about definitions, we're still working on that. We talked some about signs, we're still working on that. Planned unit developments or PDs as you call them, that's gonna be a whole separate section of the ordinance now. And it's gonna be somewhat different than what you currently have. There may be a few more characteristics that may go with that. Section 4 of the ordinance talks about the characteristics of the district. That's going to coincide with both zoning and the future land use map. Okay, you're going to see that. The next thing you're going to see is table of permitted uses. So, you know, our table of permitted uses maybe is about this long right now.
Mhm.
And we've always had to react instead of be proactive with the table of permitted uses. So currently you've approved gas stations that have gas pumps. And that doesn't exist in our table of permitted uses. So we're adding to it. And then you're gonna get that ahead of time so that you can start thinking about table permitted uses. And all the things that possibly could happen in the county. There's a lot.
And we talked about that previously a little bit, right? And we were gonna look at maybe even some other standardized use standards. Okay.
So you're gonna, that chart has made it through staff. And we're gonna get it to you at the next meeting. Let's take a look at it. And that's probably gonna be the whole workshop.
Hmm.
Because there are just some things that are coming that, you know, we need to be prepared for. So table permitted uses or any land use that possibly become, and whether it's conditional use or permitted use, depending on the zone. So charging station for electric vehicles. You know, do we allow that? Where do we allow it? Yeah, you got a tattoo parlor here in the city. Well, if it comes to the county, what are you gonna do? And there are other
Tattoo parlors?
Mhm.
We don't allow tattoo parlors?
federal law says you cannot not allow land use in the village. You have to allow some. Such as.
Was just kind of surprised. I didn't know that.
And you have to be careful when you zone churches. They have certain restrictions you can't allow them in the schools. What's goes on?
Hmm.
So can we maybe get that list way before Friday?
Mhm.
As soon as we get done, we'll.
Okay.
Just know it's gonna show up.
I know you said buffers are hot and heavy on the commissioners' minds.
But we're taking all the comments you guys gave us.
Okay. So it's next.
17.
Oh, okay.
Is what we were talking about on there,
All right.
the roadside?
Yes, so, the preference is for subdivisions to have that small 60-foot berm, 6-foot with plantings on top of it if they face an arterial or collector. The sign, portion or the fence portion was, they can't be over 7 feet, but they can be only on boundaries, not in the front.
So the ordinance's preference is going to be for a single family neighborhood to tear out 25 feet of trees and then put a 6-foot berm back. Is that what I heard? Okay.
It's
Okay.
not,
Okay.
It's either or.
either or.
All right.
What we don't want is those, you know, the back of the homes facing roads like.
Hmm.
And you have one tree every 60 feet or 30 feet. So we minimize that. We close that up to every 15 feet and we also are requiring understory bushes.
Okay.
But the berm part of it is probably more restricted than any of those around the county.
Yeah, I mean, we use berms all the time, but they can have a very negative effect sometimes too, if they're like, I don't know, it's just, to me, just like a neighborhood privacy fence, that's the only thing you see going down the corridor and all the, that is a buffer, but it's
Now,
not.
Further down courthouse on the right hand side is a better example of what we would like to do.
No smoke.
Mm. That berm, is that what you're talking about? The berm there? Yeah, I agree. That's,
That is
yeah. Well done.
both sides.
Yeah.
Where is that at, Steve? Courthouse?
Between Midland and McCall.
Laurel Grove has a berm. It's not that big,
Right.
but it is a berm. And of course, it was grown back up wooded. So, I
Yeah.
mean, we didn't clear it. I mean, you'll hardly see through it.
Yeah, so we also increased the density or the buffer between residential subdivisions as well. Currently it's only 15 feet, we're gonna go 25 on the side, or is it 30? I think it's 30. Because it's gone up.
So all similar neighborhoods have a 15.
On Woods and all, we find at Bonnie Baker's, 15 feet is not enough. So we see that change in the name.
What about the less restrictive use, the chart, right? And everybody had a buffer? Okay, because. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So we said current zoning. Yeah. And then, so also, so definition, federal community use, you find characteristics of zoning districts, which, section 4. PDs, which is gonna be a whole new district. That's what's in subdivision, that's what's. But subdivision and CPU is probably gonna be first. Now the other question is, so for ordinances that, aren't necessarily land use oriented. You want to see them?
Say it again.
Land or ordinances that aren't necessarily land use oriented, do you want to see?
You can give an example.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I probably can, I can't think of it right now, but it's just. Okay,
Camping,
I got it, firearms, you want to see it?
Yeah, I don't think I have an expertise to be able to comment on it.
I don't.
I mean, I was almost towing the line with the whole chickens and hens thing, right? To me, that's
Yeah, I mean,
an
there's some-
animal ordinance, but
There's some land use involved. in
yeah,
it.
no, it is, because it's allowed in certain zoning districts, but.
Firearms, you know, that's a whole.
No, we don't.
Yeah, you, and you really don't.
That's state law, ATF. I mean, that's a whole nother.
Okay. I mean, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna email you or Katie or email you, somebody will say, hey, this is what they're talking about. Do you guys want to see?
I mean, obviously firearms has been, the only thing we would is how far away discharge.
you know, like
Property
shooting
owners,
ranges, shooting ranges.
How far away, from adjacent property owners or homes or dwellings. And I still don't know that I want to see that.
I know, you're gonna address shooting ranges, commercial ranges, stuff like that in the table of permitted uses, but just the discharge of a weapon from, the person down the road is a different one. And it's enforced differently as well. Speed limit, stuff like that, you don't want to see that, right?
Very fast, right?
Huh? Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, just so I know,
Yeah.
what the process is, that's all I'm got.
Back to minor and major subdivisions.
Yep, right there on that table.
This one or the one over here by Josh's desk?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I think there's a desire for larger lots and I think there's a demand. The development cost is so high. I mean, developers can't afford to do them due to the infrastructure that you have to put in. I mean, when you have to go in and pave a road like I-95, I mean, you got to put little lots on beside it. You can't put half acre lots. Or acre lots. So I do think there is some sort of middle place somewhere to we've got to get. I mean, maybe not wholly back to the mini farms, but I think that there is a conversation to be had. Would good county approved gravel roads that serve X number of lots? X number of lots at a minimum of, I don't know, acre or 2 acres. But you're not gonna get it when you require 8 inches of rock and 3 inches of asphalt and all that. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't
so
afford,
the
can't afford to do it.
theory is go ahead and do the right of way. Put down the infrastructure for drainage. Gravel's fine. But if the subdivision wants to get the county to take it over a later point in time, and they got the money to bring it up to standard, that's already in place. You don't have to do right of way acquisition.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you
Better than spending a lot of money on paper.
require, so you would say require a standard 60-foot right of way.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yes.
Just the infrastructure that goes inside that would be reduced.
Yeah.
And it would be very clear on everybody's subdivision plats that that's a privately maintained road.
That is correct.
And-
That is right.
And it's up to y'all to figure out how to maintain it.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And it could be a subdivision. I mean, it can be a subdivision, I mean,
We
but
address all of
obviously
this,
you have to limit the number.
infrastructure, we've had guys that wanted to put something on Midland just recently and we declined it because it was too dense. Because the public at large came in here screaming, people are pulling in my driveway to change their flat tires because they can't get on the shoulders of the road. I mean, we don't have the infrastructure to handle all of this density. We keep putting subdivision after subdivision and you get 2.5 cars per household. My God, we're at a snarl right now on the highway system here because we didn't build the infrastructure first.
So I know that there's what,
T-Splosh.
45 million,
November 7th, make sure we go to the polls.
yeah.
I don't know if I can say that up here.
I'll just
Well, I
say,
didn't say we
you-
would vote.
You can.
the infrastructure was there. The infrastructure just hasn't kept up with the growth.
Right, it was there when you were a smaller community, when you had less than
You know-
25,000 residents in a whole
Tim,
county.
Tim's got a very telling slide. It's true, like there's, yeah, well, the T-Splosh website did for sure. There's good information and that's, assuming T-Splosh does get funded again, there's a lot of improvements that will
Yeah.
happen. I mean, there's a lot of improvements that are going to happen still with this round that just, there hasn't been enough time to actually build them yet. But where was I going with this?
He's got it planned. It's in the works.
Oh, yeah. Relative to our tax digest versus population growth. I mean, the Great Recession did a great number on our number to keep, to keep things rolling, right? And
Mhm.
part of that was, I think Tim's exact words were, there was some deferred maintenance and deferred additional spending that, just because it had to be done to keep it, a balanced budget and things. So the good news is hopefully now we are getting out of that and if we can keep funding transportation and infrastructure projects.
Yeah.
I think we can, I mean, it is growing pains. I think that's why they call it growing pains, but I think we can address it and move forward.
The
successfully.
parkway's way too long coming.
Right. So again, if we'd had T-Splosh 20 years ago, we could have funded it ourselves 20 years ago, as opposed to waiting with a handout.
Yeah,
for-
but the parkway only takes you from 30 to Blue Jay and it's only 2 lanes, isn't it? 1 lane that way and 1 lane this way.
For right now.
Yeah, but doesn't the world live in the southern end of the county? I mean, come
I didn't.
on.
He was joking. He's
Oh, in the southern end, yeah.
The parkway's
Gotta start somewhere.
kind of been messed up.
If commercial property is against the parkway, because I spoke to a guy recently who wants, and I thought it'd be on the agenda tonight, but it's not. Wants to open up a convenience store off of Goshen Road. He wants to buy a parcel of land there and he thinks that he can have access to Effingham Parkway. Will that be
It
allowed?
is not a non-access highway. So there will be.
So is it limited access?
It is not limited.
It is not limited
It is
access.
not limited access. But there will be limits to the access.
Okay.
So another thing that you're gonna see is called a commercial corridor district. It's an overlay district. And for places like Hodgsville and Effingham Parkway, there are gonna be a set of standards that will allow for some exciting commercial development along those areas. That also will support future right-of-way acquisition if necessary.
Are we gonna have any architectural controls?
Yes, sir. Lighting.
Yeah.
Parking. So that commercial corridor will also be something that you'll be seeing as well, and we'll mesh it into the overall landmark. We also have one more thing coming. It's a tree preservation ordinance that Chelsea's working on. Incentive based. And we'll see how that works out, but that's really something that's kind of encouraging.
How far along are you on that? You can answer that all later if you want.
A little more than halfway.
So, you know,
I've seen a lot of them, so I'll be happy to look at it.
Absolutely.
I mean,
lot-
a lot,
right up your alley.
yeah, no doubt. I mean, I do think to the point of the frustration of the general public, those kind of things, buffers, tree preservation, making development less visually impactful to them as they drive to and from work or to and from school or whatever, will go a long way.
It helps. It definitely
I mean,
helps.
obviously, we still got traffic challenges and things of that nature, but
But unless you know you're thinking.
Yeah.
So where on the street is it's ready to be, want to go?
Lunch, dinner, supper, yeah, whatever it is.
lunch, leper.
All right, I'll adjourn the workshop, blessed food by that. All right.
Thank you.
So workshop is adjourned and Lord Jesus asks you would bless this food to nourish somebody in this service, and thank you for the hands that prepared it and people that took the time together in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So there's a lot going on. It's exciting.
Well, I'm really excited